What if you could actually wear a story? Today, we're going to dive into Kavadea. It's a brand that was born from this one person's dream and a really powerful mission to take these beautiful, fading traditions and turn them into something you can wear, making sure our most precious stories don't just disappear.
You know, they say every great idea starts with a story, right? Well, this one is no different. For Kavadea's founder, it was super personal. She had this dream her whole life of opening an art gallery, creating her own little world. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? That dream was about to have a serious collision with reality.
And that collision, that dose of reality, it all came down to this one question. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a personal dream anymore. It became this urgent mission, a race against the clock to save something beautiful before it vanished for good. So let's get into it. Our story really kicks off with a conflict that I think a lot of us can relate to. On one hand, you have this huge, passionate childhood dream, in her case, an art gallery. But on the other hand, you have that paralyzing fear. You know, the fear of becoming the starving artist. She was basically stuck between two completely different worlds. Down one path was everything creative, art, imagination, painting her thoughts. But the other path, that was the quote-unquote secure one. Financial stability, a rigid school curriculum, a path that seemed to kill creativity, not encourage it. And she was just desperately trying to figure out, how can I build a bridge between these two? Her first try was interior design. She thought, okay, this is art, but it's also practical. But it just felt stifling. Too many rules. Then she found it. Fashion design. And it was like, bam, the floodgates just opened. She could finally paint, sculpt, create with no limits. It felt like she was finally home. And this, right here, is where the whole story takes a wild turn. For a university project on Indian crafts, she stumbled onto something that wouldn't just define her career, but would give her this incredible sense of purpose. She discovered something called Kavad art. Now, you gotta picture this. It's this wooden box, but as it unfolds, panel by panel, it tells an entire epic story. It was basically a portable temple, a whole universe of myths and legends that storytellers would carry with them for hundreds of years. A story, literally inside a box. So of course, she was totally captivated and traveled to the very village where this art form was born. And what she found was shocking. Just silence. Nobody there even knew about it. This vibrant, 400-year-old tradition was like a ghost in its own home. The story was dying, right there at its source. Just how bad was it? Well, after searching and searching, she found one. A single artisan. One person whose hands held the last living connection to this entire 400-year-old tradition. Suddenly, that sense of urgency became, well, overwhelming. And this is where the mission gets deeply, deeply personal. The fear of this art form failing wasn't just an abstract idea anymore. It was tangled up in her own family's history of artistic struggle and, honestly, heartbreak. You see, her own mom was a designer at heart, just a brilliant artist. But life's hardships forced her to put all that passion on a shelf and let it go. So for the founder, this wasn't just some story she read about. It was a painful struggle she'd watched her whole life. And it wasn't just her mom. Her father was an incredible artisan who worked with emerald gemstones, crafting these beautiful treasures by hand. But same story. Eventually, the craft just couldn't be sustained. He became another artist in her family who had to give up his passion. The pattern goes back even further. Her grandmother created these unbelievably intricate artifacts, just breathtaking skill, but there was no market for her talent, no one to sell to. So this fear of failure, it wasn't just a fear. It was a painful pattern woven right through her family's DNA. But here's the thing. Despite this whole history of struggle, her mother gave her the most incredible piece of advice. She said, "Regret of not trying is bigger than failing. Do what you want." That one sentence, it became her guiding light, her North Star. So she's got her mom's words fueling her, but she's also carrying the weight of her family's past. She hit a breaking point. And what followed was this period of total uncertainty that, funnily enough, led to her biggest moment of clarity. It all happened in a whirlwind. On an impulse, she quit college, just walked away. The next few days were a complete blur of doubt, confusion, probably a lot of "what did I just do?" And then, one morning, the fog just lifted. The The mission was crystal clear.
She had a name for it, Kavadea. It's a mix of Kavad, the art she wanted to save, and Idea. It was perfect. This wasn't just going to be a brand, it was a movement. A mission to make sure stories like this one never get lost in the shuffle of modern life.
And she knew exactly how to do it. The answer was fashion. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? For these ancient stories to survive, they need a modern voice. And fashion is identity, it's culture, it's literally storytelling you can wear. It was the absolute perfect canvas to bring these lost stories into today.
So, with a clear mission and a name, the real work began. The hard part of building a brand that was actually worthy of the stories it was trying to tell. And let me tell you, it was a journey of refining and failing and pivoting, but she never ever compromised on that vision.
And almost right away, she hit a question she still gets all the time. In a world totally dominated by fast fashion, people would look at her pieces and ask, why the high price tag? And the thing is, you can't even compare the two. It's not apples to apples. Fast fashion is mass-produced, it's meant to be disposable, it's made from cheap stuff, and there's no story. Kavadea is the exact opposite. We're talking about heirloom quality, built with techniques that are centuries old, using premium fabrics. It's not just a piece of clothing, it's wearable art. It has a soul. And the impact is so real. Customers talk about how wearing these pieces makes them feel confident and seen and valued. They feel a real connection to the history that's literally woven into the fabric. That's the true value. It goes way beyond just the material itself. Which brings us right back to that core mission that started this whole thing. Kavadea exists to make sure that art and the artists who create it can actually thrive, not just barely survive. It's a promise that their stories will not be forgotten. This whole incredible journey really leaves you with one last question. In a world that's all about fleeting trends, Kavadea chose to weave a story about permanence and purpose. So it makes you think, what story does your clothing tell?